Barrie.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Barrie Friedland. I'm with my cat Toby, and of course Jacob Kravetz, and we are so excited to talk to Jean Salvatore, who is the heart and the soul and the founder and the executive director of Shadowcats TNR. We're going to go into, we've had her on before. We love talking with her. We're going to talk about what TNR is. We're going to talk about the banner year her organization has had and some other legislation and hopefully some helpful feline tips. So, Jean, welcome, welcome. Could you tell us some of your amazing stats for this year?
Sure, I'm really happy to share this because we did phenomenally this past year. I for some time I've said one of these years we're going to hit 2,000 cats fixed. Well, in 2025 we actually fixed 2,198, which is a lot of cats coming through the system. Given that we're just a small nonprofit, this is 20% more than we've done before. This is kind of earth-shattering. It's making us think about adding facility, which is going to require some funding, fundraising and all, but we are finding that we have quite a larger following now than what we did a year ago. More people know about us. Our reach is not only Hartford, but as I've said before, it's Cecil County, a whole lot from Baltimore County, some from Baltimore City, and a lot more out of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania doesn't really have, they're not animal centric. They don't have really good help there. So if people will transport the cats to us, we'll get them done. We also had 385 adoptions. Let me see here. And then barn cats, 91 we placed last year, working cats. So those are cats that would have been euthanized if we hadn't been able to place them somewhere. They were pulled mostly from other rescues like Baltimore County Animal Services. So we're doing really well. We have some very energetic new volunteers, and sometimes that new outlook and fresh blood kind of helps. They're gung-ho, they have time and energy. So that means I don't have to spend quite as much time and energy, which is always good. Um, but again, we're doing a lot more than we even thought we could. And I've mentioned before, one of the issues we keep running into now is that instead of having, here's a trapped cat, he needs to be fixed and vaccinated and so on, make sure he's healthy, and then put him back outside. I don't have the actual statistics on that, but I know that at least a third to a half of the cats we bring in are adoptable. I do not know exactly why this is happening. We're not the only ones that are experiencing this trend, but maybe because people can't afford to get them fixed in the area. Once they find out about us and they know that we can do low cost and free, then we encourage them, get them all in now. So the I don't I don't know if our
What does that
oh,
mean for them to be adoptable versus other
so
cats?
when cats come in, some of them will be meowy, and after a little bit of time settle down that because they're in a strange environment, they'll come rub against the trap or they want us to pet them. And clearly
Hmm.
they may not be fixed. They're not microchipped or we would contact an owner, but they obviously have been around people. They're people centric. So they may have been in a home and then let out. They may have just been really pampered in their community because a lot of people, they're very good caretakers. They need to, number one, get them fixed, which a lot of times, again, the expense if you go to a private vet is outrageous. So they don't do that. When they find us and we can do it for a fraction of the cost, then they're more than willing usually to hand them over and let us get them fixed for them. And then they go back there. But in some cases, in many cases, the populations at these little colonies have grown to maybe a dozen or 15. And that's hard for most people to be able to afford even just to feed, never mind, sometimes there's medical care required. So if they agree and we think the cats are adoptable, we'll bring them into our adoption program. It's good to partner. That's one of the things you always find out when you start a nonprofit. Force multiplier, share the wealth, learn from other people. One of our local rescues that we work with, they do the tiny kittens. They've started up a roundtable thing that's going to happen next month where they've invited a lot of rescues to share what they know and let's all connect. And we already do connect to a lot, but you can always reach out to more people and share the wealth and share the burden. So I'm hoping that when we go to that next month, we can find a few more of the local rescues who maybe they don't have as many adoptables and they have the wherewithal with foster homes to adopt out friendlies or to socialize some of the ones that are kind of borderline, whether they are adoptable or not. I mean, I can tell you, and if you were here, you would see it. Some of the cats we bring in, they're not only standoffish, but they're fierce. So those are the strictly the ones that you're pretty sure you're not going to be adoptable. They're going to have to be released. That's what they want. But there are always these ones on the cusp of, they might be shy, but they pay attention when you talk to them. If you jingle a toy, they want to come get it, but then they're a little afraid of your hands. It takes some socializing. Um, to the point of having a lot of good partners and making that matter. One of my partners very unselfishly told me, do you know that this clinic, the one that I go to in Delaware, Brandywine Valley SPCA is wonderful. They don't have in their adoption center, they don't have many cats right now. They had a big adoption event. They don't really have many there. So when I went there, I said, are you guys taking any adoptable cats in? So of the 24 cats I brought them on Wednesday, they kept 8 for their adoption, which those are cats I would have tried to get through an adoption program. Again, not our main mission, but to not put them back outside if we could help it. And so this way they've got the wherewithal. They'll adopt them out, or if it turns out they're not really adoptable, I'll take them back. But I didn't even know about that until this partner told me. And now I'm like, you need to tell them too if you have any because they still have more room. Get in there. So it's just good to have that kind of connection, communication with other rescues. We all kind of go through some of the same problems, some of the same
Hmm.
barriers, but we have different specialties and different capabilities that if we all share that, it's really good for everybody, and especially the cats. I had
Absolutely.
a really cute little, she was a Siamese, Seal Point Siamese tabby mix, just an adorable kitten, fierce. I mean, spitting at me and everything else. She got sick, had to treat her. That meant handling her. And
Mm.
sometimes when the cats get an upper respiratory, they are very much more malleable. So you can, use a glove or use a towel and do whatever treatment, eye drops, etc. And after her treatment, she still would be swatty at me. She actually bit me at one point prior to her getting sick. But then when she was swatting at me, I took a little towel and I started rubbing her face. And she liked that. So from there, we progressed to I can rub your body with the towel and I can rub you with my hand. She got adopted last week. So that's the
Oh.
kind of thing. We don't have that much capability here, but we're going to try because again, there is
Hmm.
no reason for her to go back out, in the wild. And the site didn't actually want her back, so it was a win-win.
Can I just clarify, even though maybe it is obvious, the reason that you go in to these communities is to get the cats fixed so there's no kittens
Right.
and that you get them vaccinated and take care of any medical, which it helps stabilize this cat community. Because I was a long time ago, I was a development head of development for a marketing firm, and I called on Alley Cat Allies, and
Right.
it didn't compute to me. I said, "You mean you trap them and you fit, and then you put them back?" And but it just keeps it stabilizes the community. It stops all the procreation and all the kittens. It cuts down on the misery
Right.
and then it makes. I have a friend that feeds 2 or 3 community areas, and it's expensive and time consuming, and so yeah, as I said, maybe that was obvious, but I just wanted to clarify. That is the mission to stabilize these communities, to keep the cats healthy and fixed. And then one of the happy ramifications is that some of them can be adopted.
Right. It's a nice byproduct, if you will. But again, it does take more of our effort, and we aren't the best equipped to do it, which is why we're talking about some form of another facility to hold more of the ones that are kind of being evaluated, maybe transitioning to an indoor home. A lot of people still think of cats as being indoor outdoor animals, period. And some cats do not want to be in, as we know, or they might want to come in, but they want the outside. It's the nature of their particular nature. But that's what makes it so very difficult because a lot of people are okay with their unfixed animals in and out. So, in terms of achievements, after a year, we finally did get the bill passed locally that now has language in our county charter to permit low-cost pet spay and neuter at our local shelter. I don't know why this was required to go through all of these machinations. I talked about this before, but it is now in the county code. So that gives the municipal shelter the authority that I always thought they had to do low cost surgeries for pet owners. If and when, I have to say if and when because they're not indicating they're going to do it anytime soon, if and when they do that, that will take shift some of the burden from us because for example, today we sent 9 cats to Maryland SPCA for their low-cost surgery, and we had actually 8 of them were scheduled as pets. We give the Maryland SPCA slots to our pet owners. Thursdays, we do a neuter every other week, neuter only surgery. We give the majority of those slots to the pet owners. So they're kind of squeezing some of our slots for TNR. TNR will always take our first place because it is our mission, our main mission. But we're trying to accommodate everything. So, for example, I had a woman that called me today. She wants 1 cat is definitely inside. The 4 kittens, she's not sure. They may be in and out. So we've got this mixed bag of who's going to the clinic, what's going to happen with them, and just trying to take care of all of those different variations. It's difficult and it's not always easy to get them into the right slots. If we had a program locally where we could send most people, you have pets, you have friendly pet, go here. It would help us to focus on our main mission. We're just not there yet, and I don't think we will be for a while. So,
Are
uh,
the only people so in terms of this legislation that was just passed,
mhm.
um, are only people within the county, you have to show like residency basically within the county in order to get access to this?
I'm pretty sure that will be it. So in the past, when we did partner with the municipal shelter, the executive director at the time, he didn't care where the cats came from. He was doing, and he didn't care if they were pets that were owned, that people passed through us to him. That was okay. We have X number of slots. You need surgeries done. Bring in this many cats if you want to. Didn't care where they came from. So we were able to use some of those slots for people in lower PA where there's, again, a lot of need and not a lot of resources. We would use Harford County cats in their pets. TNR didn't matter. So it depends on how they want to run it, quite frankly. But the bill is for Harford County residents. So there are other
What was the
entities.
process behind getting this sort of legislation in place, and how difficult would it be to either replicate it, do you think, in other municipalities or get something statewide um, using it as a model?
So I'm not sure that other counties are as uh, rigid in what they expect their code to read. I will say that in Hartford, the definition of animal shelter was basically a place where, intake of animals and people would surrender their pets to. So to me, there wasn't really a restriction on what they do. It's a shelter. I mean, shelters do lots of things. But the interpretation here was, and I don't know if this was a legal interpretation or what, was that it had to be specific to what they could do. And in the way they phrased it for the charter change, it essentially still limits things because it says that the shelter may do spay and neuter of pets, owned pets, but no surgeries beyond that, which so if an animal comes in and needs dental surgery at the same time it's being spayed or neutered, they're basically saying, well, now you can't do that because that goes to the vets at $700 a pop or whatever they're charging. So it's not going to get done. So they restricted
What?
themselves more.
Mhm.
In other counties, Baltimore County has actually, I think, better. We're trying to kind of use them as a model because in terms of trap, neuter, return, they actually have a requirement that if you were feeding community cats, you must be working with a TNR person to get the cats fixed because we're not feeding growing colonies. When we'd say that to the people we help with food, we'll come and help you with some food each month, but on the condition that all of these cats are going to get fixed. We do not want them reproducing. We're not trying to grow your colony. That's the whole idea why we're here. Um, if we could put that in place and it's enforceable then by animal control, that's the next step. That's what we're going to try for next because it doesn't tell people you have to spend a bunch of money because what it's essentially saying is you have to work with these people who will do this for free. So it doesn't have to be us, it could be anybody that does TNR, but you must be working with someone doing TNR. Occasionally we find people who I don't want you on my property. I don't want anybody here. I don't want anybody to do that. Normally, someone in the neighborhood can lure the cats to their place. And if they're on their property, we have no problem. We can trap them there and get them done with their permission. But in some of the areas, especially in the rural parts where a lot of farmland, if people are adamant that they, property rights and I don't want you here and I don't care and cats just need to breed kind of thing, we sometimes get that attitude. There's no recourse. And of course, if they do reproduce terrifically, they wander off to other sites because there's not enough food source, or they start being born with mutations and diseases, and it's just awful. So there's no hammer because until an animal is sick or injured, animal control, the local government does not get involved. So I've been talking to the that's actually under the sheriff's department, the animal control supervisor there, and I think he agrees with me that this would be good to put in, but it'll probably take another year. So you asked how long it took, how hard it was. One of the county councilmen had drafted the bill, and he was subsequently, for reasons I won't go into, he was removed from the council because he was found to be a county employee, basically. There's rules on this. So when he left, he was replaced. The new person took a while to get up to speed. She and another council member, and I spoke to both of them and I had them come out and see what we do and talk to them quite often. They were gung ho to get this passed, but it took an entire legislative session to get that done, an entire year. So it just passed in December, which means it's now effective. However, like I said, it gives the permission to the shelter to do this work if they want to. The shelter last year had only an 85% live release rate, which is about as poor as it's been. Um, I'm not sure all the reasons for that. Their animal intake was significantly down as well. And I know this because Best Friends Animal Society, which we're also a partner with, they publish no-kill statistics at the end of the year. So they have the shelter's numbers there. They're not broken down by cats and dogs, but just the rough number of animals that came into the shelter was, I believe, 2,450, which isn't that many. Baltimore County, by the way, takes in twice that number every year. It's a much bigger operation. But if they if they look,
How many in terms of you were listing before around what number that you had crossed over 2000
Mhm.
uh operations this past year. I remember the last time that we were talking that you were saying that what is the scale of the number of cats that need stay to be captured and released in order to get control of the problem? Is the rate, have you grown with that 20% growth to keep up with the pace of sort of the wildcats or not yet?
so why it's a little bit hard, I'm going to try to answer this, but why it's a little bit
Yeah.
hard to really be definitive is that, again, we're not just Harford County, where the shelter is supposed to be just Harford County. I know some people that are like over the Pennsylvania line probably give their mother-in-law's address in Harford just to get animals into the shelter, but typically they're going to get Harford County animals. I want to see, and I will be getting that data from the state. I would like to see how many cats went into our municipal shelter because remember, this is cats and dogs. So if
Mhm.
they brought in 2,450 of both of those, I want to see how many were cats. Generally, in most shelters, 70% of the intake will be cats. But I don't know till I see the numbers because things could have changed there. Um, I want to think that the reason our numbers are up is not just because we expanded our area of operation, so to speak. And so, and more people know about us. We have more followers, thank God, on Facebook and all the other social media. So more people know about us. Um, but I think also that we have made a dent, a pretty big dent in how many cats would normally go to the shelter. But I need harder numbers to actually know that. Our goal is to reduce their percentage wise is to reduce their cat intake every year. And when we started, it took about 3 years that their intake went from approximately 70% cats to I think it was 51% cats, which is a pretty big jump. We're never going to eliminate, there's never going to be no cats going to the shelter. That's never going to happen. But we are working to reduce those numbers. And I think most people come to us first because they know the shelter is not a no-kill shelter, for one thing. And we do bend over backwards to help them out. I mean, we euthanize, we have to sometimes. And I have a cat that I'm kind of worried about because he's got a back injury that's affecting his he's incontinent basically, but he could be an outdoor cat and he could gain some of that muscle back if it's not permanent damage. So we're working with him, but it's not something he's going to live in a house. So I'm saying a cat
Jean, do
like
you want
that.
to point your camera down a little bit because you're kind of coming off the?
That
There
way?
we go.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. Um, if he doesn't really improve and the doctor says his quality of life is going to be terrible and we can't place him anywhere, then we would put him to sleep. That would be a mercy killing. But we don't put down for lack of space. We find the space. We don't put animals down for because it's inconvenient. We just don't do that. One of the things that's increased now is that so many people know about us from TNR. We have like I think it's at least 1,700, maybe 1,900 sites in our database since for the last 4 years. So many people know that we do this and we may have fixed their animals already, but then the cat comes down with an upper respiratory. They don't know what to do, so they contact us. So right now, for example, I have a cat in the garage in our cat central, who is on her second week of antibiotics and getting better because we try to get the people, if they can, to actually bring the animal inside some space, confine it, crate, whatever, so that it will get the antibiotics. And 2 weeks antibiotics can work miracles in cats. And then, you could let it go again. This one is looking like 1,000% better already, so I'm sure she'll be able to be released. But again, that's not our main mission, but we're not going to say, go away, we can't help you. So
And
we bring them in.
also, I want to circle back for 1 minute and then sort of topic switch to show how important this is. A very good friend of mine rescued a cat from a couple that were going to be evicted. That so because of the cat was a year old, not fixed, and $1,000. Uh,
Hmm.
but he went to the SPCA, which is in Baltimore City, and it was $175. So that is a significant delta. I would like to talk about now. I know most of our allies, most of our supporters do not live in Maryland. So we're going to talk about a bill that's coming up in Annapolis. So we need to spread the word about it to other people in Maryland. And if you don't live here, look and make sure that your state is doing this. And Jean tipped me off to it that there are two legislators, Senator Karen Lewis Young and Delegate Michelle Guyton, and we will put that in the links. And they're putting in legislation that would legalize what you're doing, trap, neuter, and replace in all the counties and jurisdictions of Maryland. Now, it's fine in some of the bigger jurisdictions, but I assume from this bill that there is resistance or pushback to those doing what you're doing and to those that are feeding it.
Mhm.
So I called up to get the number, and the bills are still being drafted. So if you're in Maryland, call these two legislators and thank them. And then when the bills come out, it's being cross introduced, support it. So, Jean, do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what sort of precipitated the bills, but it is along the lines of what you were saying, is that people are either objecting to the whole concept of trap, neuter, return because they're like, I don't like cats or whatever it is. and not understanding that it's really about population control and public health as well, because we're vaccinating. Um, or that they don't want, because maybe in their communities there are a lot of people feeding them and not having them fixed, so they're reproducing madly. And that is a problem, a concern. I get that. But it's rare that places actually prohibit. Most jurisdictions just don't even say anything about it. And so it's like if you feed the squirrels, nobody can tell you you can't feed the squirrels. If you want to feed the cats, nobody can tell you unless you're in a homeowners association that specifically prohibits it or something like that. A management company is telling you it's in your contract, you can't. We'll boot you. Um, a lot of times it's again, it's misunderstanding of what the whole idea is and why it works, why it's the only thing that works. To the point that Jacob was making, the experts on TNR will tell you you have to fix, you have to neuter or spay 90% of the colony. And when they say colony, they're not just talking about one location, one street address. They mean they actually go by zip code in order to effectively stop the reproduction rate. So then that's what we go for. We actually go for 100% wherever we are. But, cats wander, cats roam, and that is an issue. So again, I don't know what precipitated it, but I think this is a great bill. Apparently, these are two new legislators that are on board with this, and they have some support within their chambers. We just have to encourage them. If people who are cat lovers in particular, animal lovers in general, will just go to their legislators and say, I want this. This is a good concept. This is humane. This is what we want to do. The legislators will listen. The more that we call and let them know how we feel about it. And I think there's a very good chance that with support this will pass. I believe Maryland Votes for the Animals is the one that has been putting out information on, sorry, on that, on those two bills. So yeah, I'm looking for the bill numbers because we definitely will put it in our newsletter. We will put it out to everybody that follows us and make sure we get a really robust response. I
Is
don't
there
know.
any concerted um I hear the what you're saying about sort of a general residents or things like that might have some generally from misunderstanding or perhaps I guess from a dislike of cats. You're right, you described why people might be against this. Are there any sort of institutional or larger sort of moneyed interests or business or anything that are either for or against this type of legislation, or is it um, mostly just so tangential that it doesn't end up that no one ends up having an opinion?
I'm not 100% sure, but I
Hmm.
do think that the biggest pushback we get from people is
Hmm.
they kill birds, and I'm a bird lover. Well, so am I, and I feed the birds too, but I know how to place my feeders such that it's not likely a cat will ever get a bird that's going to that feeder. You basically clear the ground around there. Do cats kill birds? Yes, they do. Um, if you don't want more cats killing birds, then we should have fewer cats. So that's the argument to do TNR. I don't know that there's actually, I will tell you that I know some veterinarians in the area here are against trap neuter return. I have no idea why. One of the vets actually does, he, he, I don't know if it's a contraceptive pill or he actually does space surgery on deer, but I've been told he doesn't support feline TNR. And I don't know why. I don't know why that would be. I don't think there's a big corporate thrust one way or the other. Although, like I said, there are certain groups that just are against. I run into the birders mostly, and they want to always argue with me that cats are terrible because they kill, billions of birds a year or whatever. And truthfully, this is true. They can look up the statistics. The worst problem cats have is people in development. It's absolutely the worst. Not that they're killing birds. I mean, and the birds are the same way. Birds get drummed out from habitat because of people in development. So, it is what it is. We know that what we're doing helps the cats, helps the community. And it's no small part too that, especially in Hartford, we've had, I believe, 8 or 10 recorded rabies cases in this past year. And there were more of them in cats than there had been in years previously. Not in any of the areas where we had done trap, neuter, and return. Um, so, it's there are public health benefits to doing this work. There's community benefits. The other thing that people object to, besides they think cats are number one bird killers, which most of them are not, they get crawling things more often, um, is the cat that the neighbor's feeding comes and uses my garden as a litter box. And there are ways to dissuade the cats from using that, but they don't want to hear it. They just want the cats gone a lot of times. So that's what we run into most.
Barry, you're muted. Barry, you are muted.
Ah,
Hmm.
she's talking to Toby, no doubt.
Yeah.
I
Um,
have a cat here too.
yeah.
There,
Now, I was saying a lot of it's ignorance because 20 years ago, or maybe 15 years ago, there were laws in Baltimore City that you could not feed a cat that wasn't in your household. And I'm saying that I'm sure the statute of limitations is over. I admit doing it. But, I don't think people understand. And, I do feed in the alley, and I do get that, oh, it's in my garden. And I said, well, half of what they do is good for your garden, actually. But and you make the excellent point that if cats are killing birds, less cats, fewer cats will live. Now, we want to close. You're having a fundraiser on March 7th. And if you live in Maryland or Delaware or Pennsylvania or fly in from Oregon, you're going to have your a fundraiser. You basically do these amazing things with volunteers and a little bit of grant money and a little bit of donations. So we will also put up the March 7th fundraiser. Uh,
thank you.
it's a great time, great food, and it's lovely people doing great things.
Thanks for that plug. And yes, we're looking forward to it. The committee's been working already. We have sponsorship information out already. If you guys don't receive our newsletter, I will send it to you. It's pretty involved because this is a recap of 2025. It's a lot of good stuff. But in the past few years, when we've done this particular fundraiser, it's not really expensive, but you have the opportunity to, bid on an item or a raffle basket or whatever. We're going to have some door prizes. There's some music. It's a lovely group of people, and we do have vegan food and dessert every time because a lot of our folks are vegan. And so we're trying to make sure that they feel comfortable there as well. We have a pay-as-you-go bar, beer and wine, and it should be a lot of fun. I'm hoping the snow and the winter is over by then. But yes, it's March 7th, and it's going to be in Darlington, Maryland, which is close to the Pennsylvania line and the Cecil County line. So hopefully we get folks from those counties as well.
I thought Canada. No,
It's not
coming
close
from
enough to
Baltimore.
Canada.
I'm kidding. Well, Jean, as always, you're a friend of us and a friend of our chats. And we, when if the bill numbers come out before we Jacob sends us out, we'll include the bill numbers, but we'll link to
Totally.
your Facebook, we'll link to the two legislators, and we'll link
Great.
to your fundraiser.
Great. I'm sure they're mostly interested in hearing from Maryland residents, but I don't think it prohibits anybody from outside of Maryland to say, hey, we support this too. We do this here in our state. Any kind of support is good on those bills. And I do think that there's a great likelihood that they'll pass, and it will only help to make people feel more comfortable that most of them that see the cats outside, they're good people at heart. They don't want them to starve, so they give them food and they give them shelter, and then they're taking care of them. And then we help them with the next steps, which is what we're here for. Um, yeah.
Well,
So
yeah, Gene, we just want to thank you so much both for coming on and telling the story and for tirelessly doing it every single day, looking out for the public health, not just of humans, but of all the wonderful living creatures that we have. it's such a heartwarming and wonderful thing, especially to see it growing, and to see all of this progress being made, both for your organization and the fact that we're starting to get some real legislative, you know, sort of gaining momentum there as well. So, a real wonderful and heartwarming, sort of testament to what can be done when when a few people that care a lot, put their minds to something. So, thank you
That's
so much
right.
again, and
Yeah.
we hope everyone will enjoy doing this. And until next time, do shop on Tuesday.